interrupt this program to bring you
something completely different.
Hi, I'm Kaz. Most of you know me as the green text that pops up and messes with the guys. What you may not know is that I'm what you would call a casual gamer. Usually, I don't care much about game engines or multiplayer trends. What I do care about is story. Either give me a well-written story or a creative way to tell a complicated story, and I'm on board. Naturally, I'm a fan of RPGs like Final Fantasy and Halo. Games that set up a vast world that comes to life with deep lore across many mediums to keep you going. I also enjoy games like Five Nights at Freddy's and Kingdom Hearts. Games that give you a long story and unique ways to get plot points across before they all come together in the end. Complicated? Maybe. Convoluted? Absolutely. But it's different, and I like different. Even though I'm more of a casual gamer, there is one thing I do get somewhat picky about when it comes to games, and that's design. You could tell the best story ever written in your game, but when it looks terrible, you may as well just write a book. Harsh, I know, but the market decides, and it's clear what they've chosen. If you want me to watch your story, then you at least have to make it look good. Being on YouTube for more than 30 seconds, I can see I'm not alone in this. Whether it's Master Chief's redesign in the Reclaimer saga, or Sonic on the big screen, people have very strong opinions. Being one of them myself, I've had a chance to watch how people respond when they see something they care about change right in front of them. And to most people, these two cases seem like the same thing. But what if they weren't? What if I told you the reaction to these characters is both the good and the bad side of a fandom that has the best of intentions? I want to start off by saying this is all just my opinion. Kid and Ginger have not approved this message. First, let's take a look at Sonic. Most people know what he looks like. Small, blue, and spiky. If you compare his first game on the Sega with more recent games like Sonic Forces, it's easy to tell that his current look is just the product of higher resolution. However, when the first trailer hit for the new movie, fans were understandably uncomfortable with the new approach. But why? It's simple. Sonic is a cartoon. What I mean is, even when the graphics get better and voices are added and changed, Sonic still needs to look like Sonic. His look, his aesthetic, is all he really has. Having him in the real world doesn't change the rules. I'd argue that it actually reinforces the rules. Think of characters like Bugs Bunny. When you bring him and the Looney Tunes to the real world, they don't turn into real animals. They keep their overall look, because having them blend in is not the point. Instead, the world has to try and adapt to them. Of course it fails because they're not real. But you get to have fun along the way without losing what makes the characters who they are. It seems like the team behind the movie didn't realize this at first and tried to recreate a classic character as they thought he would look in the real world. The result may have been exactly what they were going for, but it discards all of the character's charm for the sake of realism. On the surface, you have the basic characteristics. He's small, he's blue, and he's spiky, though honestly he looks more furry than spiky. Now I'll be honest, after seeing the original trailer a few times, even I could see what they were going for. And as different as it is, it had a sort of charm on its own. But even with that, it still didn't feel like Sonic. This was something that attached itself to something that already existed, like Bugs Bunny being green or Mickey Mouse being a dog. It was just wrong. Of course, that's not to say they don't have a story worth telling, but usually, original stories are better with original characters and settings. And then something incredible happened. In a time where remakes and reboots run rampant in Hollywood, one studio took a stand. They decided not to just ignore the fans, but instead listen to all the people who criticized their product. They took the time to understand what everyone had been saying. This is a character that fans had loved, even love to hate, for decades. And we all wanted the same thing, the movie to be the best it can be. Too often, the target audience of a product is ignored or silenced when they try to give valid criticism. But not this time. Fans were heard, fans were understood, and the movie was delayed in order to more accurately portray the character. At this point, it didn't matter if the new design was perfect or even close. Just the fact that they were willing to try means everything. This one act proves that there are people in these companies that want to do our favorite characters justice, and it will not be forgotten. When Sonic got the redesign he needed, fans were overjoyed. So much so that the team behind the movie is being showered with praise to this day. Some people say the studio was just bullied into fans' demands, but I disagree. When you take what already exists and you try to put your own spin on it, you're taking a huge risk. The fans were there before the movie was even thought of, and they will be there after. Not to mention the decades of material that stayed pretty consistent with what and who the character is supposed to be. In the end, everyone behind the scenes can take pride in their dedication to giving the fans the absolute best they can offer. And the fans get the best possible product. After all, they'll be spending their own money on it. Criticism, when it's criticism, should not just be outright ignored. People like Jim Carrey, who think the general public shouldn't have a chance to change what Hollywood makes, just don't understand. He's allowed to have his opinion, but so is everyone else. And honestly, if that's the mindset you have, then you really haven't been paying attention. Just look at what the verified people on Twitter and Tumblr did to iconic franchises like Thundercats and She-Ra. But that's a topic for another time. Studios are so quick to shove their interpretation of something classic in everyone's faces that they miss the most important point. If you stay true to the source material, the fans stay with you. Not only that, but we respect you more for it. Not to mention the fact that if more people watch your stuff, you make more money to make even more stuff, which makes you even more money. Stockholders are happy, audiences are happy, everybody wins. And in the end, if you wanted to try again with the idea you had originally, you now have the support of the fans who saw your dedication. Just make it something new. Now let's look at Halo. Starting out on the original Xbox, Halo didn't have the same graphical limitations as Sonic did. That's not to say the limitations didn't exist, but it's much more than a 2D side-scroller. Even still, Bungie pulled out all the stops to deliver a literal game-changer with Halo Combat Evolved. In the following years, graphics improved by leaps and bounds, and Halo 2 and 3 are perfect examples of just how much improvement was made in such a short time. Master Chief went from a shiny, plastic-looking soldier to a rugged, battle-scarred badass. Fans were quickly drawn to the Spartan with his no-nonsense demeanor and snippy AI. But personality aside, the fact that he didn't have a face put more focus on his armor. Whenever you see that helmet, or even the chest plate or the gloves, you know it's Master Chief. Even as graphics improved, there was no mistaking him. He became a gaming icon that FPS enthusiasts and narrative junkies like myself could easily identify with. Before long, you couldn't go anywhere without seeing him on posters or advertisements. Even people who never heard of Halo had seen his armor and could easily recognize him. Sound familiar? Well, we're not done yet. Sometime later, Bungie parted ways with Microsoft. Now, for the sake of this discussion, the reasons behind the split don't really matter. But this meant it was up to 343 Industries and Microsoft to pick up the next installments if the game was going to continue. By the time Halo 4 was announced, graphics on the existing consoles were leagues beyond what they were when Halo 3 released. This meant the designs could be more realistic than ever. Surely fans would love seeing Spartans in a game that looks like real life, right? Well, wrong. More specifically, it wasn't that it was more real, but rather that it wasn't exactly the same. The shape of his armor had changed. Not enough to be something completely different, but noticeable all the same. I myself was just too excited for another Halo game to notice the complaints from the larger community, and it stayed that way for a long time. It wasn't till Halo 5 was announced that I finally caught wind of the disgruntled players. Audiences were loudly and angrily upset with the direction the design was going. And to their credit, they had valid points. But I still couldn't understand the level of outrage that came from something I thought was so small. So I watched and read everything I could find to try to better understand why exactly everyone was so mad. During this, the dislike over the new design turned to distrust of the developers without Bungie at the helm. After all, if they didn't respect the look of the character, how could they respect the legacy? And with a new game on the horizon, things were looking bleak. But I think I finally understand what people were so mad about. I could be totally wrong, but I'll share my findings with you anyway. Now keep in mind, games like Halo 2 Anniversary are remakes made by 343 Industries and Microsoft Studios. Bungie wasn't there. So, for the sake of this comparison, I won't be including games like the Anniversary Editions. Instead, I'll be focusing on the core games as they were originally released. When you look at the design changes that took place from Combat Evolved to Halo 4, while ignoring all the games in between, you should be able to see what took me so long to notice. The reason why people were so upset with the new look. They see a drastic change from what the character started out as, and it's important to point out, they're not wrong. This right here is why I think most of the people that have a problem with the look in Halo 4 and 5 really do mean well. In fact, the designs are so different that beyond the color and overall shape, you could even mistake them for different characters. On the surface, 343 looks like a studio just projecting their vision over something that came before and calling it a continuation. After many years, a lot of fans decided enough is enough. And some studio executives seem to have agreed. In the new trailer for Halo Infinite, we see Chief back in a slimmer set of armor, more like what he wore in Halo 2. This made the people who were once angry instead hopeful about the upcoming game. Their voices were heard, and designs were changed back to what people were more accustomed to with their favorite space soldier. And this is where I think the similarities between Halo and Sonic end, because there's one key difference that I haven't heard anyone talk about. Looking back at Sonic, fans have had almost 30 years worth of material across Sega games, Archie comics, TV shows, and the new 3D installments to notice the changes that the character has made in his design. Because of this, the changes were gradual and never really seemed out of place. But of course, if you take the cover for Sonic, made in 1991 for the original Sega, and compare it to the look of Sonic from Sonic Forces, you will see a huge difference. It could almost be considered a different character. In fact, this was even referenced when Sonic came out with Generations. But that's just it. What happens when you look at the changes made from each Halo game to the next without skipping over any titles? Armor pieces get more complex. They even get bigger and have a more robust look. Even the visor on his helmet has details that didn't exist in the previous games. While it's true that he does get an upgraded suit of armor at the start of Halo 2, there are still differences between the look there compared to Halo 3. With this, you could easily make the argument that the look in Halo 3 is what Bungie had in mind for the earlier titles. Maybe they were just held back by inferior graphics capabilities. Now I know this is speculation, but from there, you could even assume that the look in Halo 4, while different, was what 343 thought Bungie would want for a more realistic design. It's not exact, but the aesthetic is still there, it's not hard to tell that this is the Master Chief. I mean, it's not like they gave him a motorcycle helmet and rubber gloves. It's clearly Mjolnir armor. A slightly different shape, a slightly different design. But the world was also scaled up to be something that felt more real. With that, certain designs had to change with it. I don't think this was a case of just remaking something that already existed. Instead, it presents itself as a continuation that's seen through HD lenses. Now yes, Halo 4 brought in new strange enemies and subplots. And yes, Halo 5 had a really awkward marketing campaign. But if you look past the small things and see the story that they're trying to tell you, you'll see it's still Halo. Personally, I didn't see any changes big enough to turn the game into anything other than what it already was. Just maybe some new herbs and spices to keep the gameplay fresh. Another example of what I'm talking about is Fireteam Osiris in Halo 5. I know, it has nothing to do with game design, but hear me out. Fans were mad that the game was unevenly split, with missions between them and Blue Team. Those conversations quickly devolved into hatred over Osiris entirely. As such, executives in charge of Halo's production made a point of telling audiences that the next game would go back to their roots and focus on the Master Chief. The problem I have with this is that it didn't feel like they were doing anything wrong. For example, this is not a remake. This is not a reboot. This is a legitimate continuation from a story we knew. Microsoft are not exactly strangers to the Halo brand. They were involved with its production from the beginning. So it's not a case of some new company coming in and changing it from the ground up. Nor is it someone else's interpretation of the story. It may not exactly be bullying a studio, but this is what I think it looks like when a fandom goes too far. When even if they think the backlash is justified, it doesn't seem to be. By all rights, this is a story that is still being told for the first time. We haven't reached an end. They haven't gone back and rewritten the beginning. And due to that, it's not our story to tell. I'd rather see the story through, all the way to the end, and look at it as a whole before I consider telling them how to tell their story. But I understand. That's just my opinion. I'm really curious what all of you think about this. Am I crazy or just overthinking stuff? Leave a comment, tag me on Twitter, tell me what you think. While you're at it, let me know if I should do more videos like this, or if I should just stick to my green text and leave the talking to Kid and Ginger. By the way, Kid and the Ginger are still doing the Nintendo Joy-Con Charger giveaway. Just follow us on Twitter and use the hashtag KidAndTheGinger giveaway to enter. And speaking of giveaways, our 100 subscriber giveaway is right around the corner. More details will be announced the closer we get to our goal. If you're wondering why I'm here and the guys aren't, well, Kid had a death in the family. It would really mean a lot to me if you guys could go to Twitter or Facebook and just show him some love. I know he would appreciate it. Lastly, I want to give a shout out to our patrons. Bill and Tristan, you guys are awesome. If you're interested in supporting us on Patreon, the link is in the description. All money made goes straight into the channel to make better stuff for you guys. Till next time, I'll shut up now.